All right, Jamie.
Yes, sir.
Jamie, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. I was born there in 1980. Uh, Coming from originally very poor, my father's side of the family, my granddad literally had a hunt for squirrels for breakfast before school in the morning. And on my mom's side, they're immigrants from Italy. But on both sides of the family, they were able to pull themselves up. So I grew up having everything I wanted. It was a very Steel Magnolias kind of childhood in the South. And everything was really nice until everything kind of started breaking apart. One of the first things I remember really grabbing my attention was my uncle Buddy. He was a pharmacist. He had sold the pharmacy and he was just there to show the people that bought it how he did things. And as he was doing that, somebody came in to rob the pharmacy for drugs and beat him to death right there in the pharmacy. And it was all over the news for weeks. So every time it would come on, it would just cause more crying. And it was very frightening for a child to know that this man that was so nice and loving, that somebody had hurt him. Not very much long after that, my sister had a friend, Cricket, and I had a friend, Brandon. One day they didn't show up for school. When my mom picked us up, she was bawling. And what happened was their parents got a divorce, and that night their mom had given them a bath, given them sleeping pills, shot both of them, and then shot herself. So I knew from a very young age that violence and death can happen. You know, a lot of people retain this immortality, nothing can happen to me, well into their early 20s, but not me. I knew it could happen. We moved from the little town we lived in to inside of Birmingham, and the first year I was at this middle school, it was like lean on me. These guys have been held back, huge kids, like 16 gang fights. I was not used to that. It scared me terribly. And being as short as I was and being the new kid, I was picked on relentlessly. I remember going to school, it was a horror show. I would having to go to the bathroom because I was too scared to go into the bathrooms because I would get beat up. At the last year of middle school, we were about to move to another town, and I already seen how the cool kids acted. And I was like, I'm not going to let what happened this time happen at this new school. It was the mid-90s, early 90s, so I grew my hair long, had my pants baggy, got the skateboard, and it was like night and day. All of a sudden, I was Ferris Bueller, who could get away with murder, pretty girls left and right. It was amazing. It was a wonderful, carefree time where I could do anything I wanted. But I think being picked on made me want to be the coolest. So I wanted to push the envelope. So then it was drugs, to try to look cool. And started going to raves. It's the mid-90s. And the first one I went to, I got some LSD, and I went there, and all these beautiful girls. The music was loud, and everybody wanted to get in, and it really clicked inside me that I want to be a part of this. So me being the manipulative little rat that I am, weaseled my way into this rave company. And when you work for them, you would get, your little necklace with all the parties that you VIP to. They have little placards, VIP, and you would collect them if you work for them. So not only in Birmingham, I could go to big cities like New Orleans and Atlanta, to where these raves had tens of millions of people. And even though I wasn't working it, I could get in free, go past these lines with all these beautiful girls and their ugly boyfriends and walk right past them and go in. And that, did a lot for my self-esteem. But drugs were becoming to take a real hold on my on my mind, my psyche, the way I thought, it became everything to me. My girlfriend at the time told my parents I was doing drugs. It caused a lot of contention in the household because my mother was a drug addict too, but she was a pill addict. We didn't understand. Our family, when we go to family functions, they would pull me and my sister aside and be like, "What's wrong with your mom?" We didn't know. That's how she always acted. My friends would make fun of her, the way she talked. She would get my friends to get pills for her, but we didn't understand the seriousness of it. But during my senior year, some of my friends had dropped out, and to me, it felt like they were being adults now. They didn't have to go to school. They were working. So I wanted to drop out too, being the fool I was, and my dad was just so overwhelmed with my mother having to move to all these different houses, working at the post office, that he just kind of broke apart and let it happen. This girl I knew, when I first met her, she was real chubby, had short black hair, was not interested. She calls me up one day, the day after one of my cousins got in a car wreck and died. His name was Smack. We call him Smack. The last name was Smaralia. He was real popular at the school too. It really made everybody sad, but she called me. She's like, "Pick me up. I got a bunch of ecstasy, cocaine." And so I went and picked her up. But when I picked her up, she didn't look like she did. She had long blonde hair, was tan, really beautiful. And my world changed. What she gave us was not ecstasy. It was called DXM, dextromethorphan, which you find in Robitussin. Kids take to Robotrip. This was pure powdered. And we weren't prepared for what it did. So it sent all of us into such a bad trip. It's kin to ketamine and PCP. It's in the same family. So you can imagine what this is doing to a kid who's only 18 years old and didn't know what was going on. The next thing I know, I'm traveling with her to Atlanta and then to Florida, where she was living with her friend Nova. We're selling these pills left and right. Nova's boyfriend Dan worked at Club La Vila in Panama City Beach, which is the spot of spring break. So again, I'm walking past this line of all these hot girls and their boyfriends and walking right into the place, being cool, But things were getting sour quick. We mixed LSD and DXM one night and was on the beach praying to God to please bring me down. And as we were walking away, I saw it was Krishna, the Hindu god, hallucination. But as I was staring at him, he blinked. And when that happened, I still remember that moment crystal clear. And everything inside me broke. Everything I thought I knew about, because I grew up Roman Catholic, very Catholic. I knew everything. That was what was real, right? That was what was. But at that moment, everything broke apart. Came back home. We broke up. I was literally in bed with another girl when I got a phone call. I picked it up. She told me she was pregnant. My dad kicks me out of the house, divorces my mom, tries to save his own mind. I'm floating around. We have this child. Her name is Sierra. Beautiful little girl. But through another girlfriend, I met this guy who had methadone. This was a very scary guy. There's a documentary called Skinheads in Birmingham and another one on Amazon Prime. This guy, I'm not going to say his name because I don't need repercussions from this, but these were some of his little minions. These guys were violent and scary, and again, something I'm not used to, but I'm becoming an addict. I need these methadone pills. So I'm living with him, hearing all this hate. Nowadays, they're not like that. They understand that they were brainwashed and just full of hate. But at the time, we're young, and these people are scary mean. I am a junkie. No one wants to talk to me. Everything's falling apart. The world is scary. I end up in jail. As I'm in there withdrawing from the methadone, these guys are talking about being in the army. I'm like, maybe that's what I need. So tell my dad. And he's like, you're just saying that so I'll come bail you out. No, I'm really going to do it. Get out of jail. I joined the Army. 3 days after my 21st birthday, I shipped off to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Still withdrawing off the methadone. It was horrible at first. I was short, had a short last name. They loved to pick on me. And it was bad. But at the end of basic training, one of my drill sergeants introduced me to his whole family and said, this is where I lost the $200, betting that he was going to be the first one to skip out and go home. But I stuck with it and made it through AIT and was assigned to the DMZ in Korea. First week I was there, they had these drills in the middle of the night where you put on your battle rattle and you go do these maneuvers. It's annoying, but it's supposed to be once every month. 2 weeks later, the sirens go off. People are yelling. It is not like it was last time. We have live rounds now and full battle rattle, everything. And it's 2 a.m. in Korea. And as we're staying there, I'll never forget, our first sergeant says, men, America's under attack. Someone flew 2 planes into the World Trade Tower. Again, my world changed. Everything was different then. They told us stories of espionage from North Koreans when we first went there, but we didn't believe this crap. But on guard duty, constantly cars are passing by, taking pictures of our camp. On one of these maneuvers, these 2 little girls try to run in between our tanks and were crushed. What an awful thing to see. And when we're out in the field, we have our concertina wire, our perimeter, razor wire. And they would send these little kids, we call them slicky boys, and they would try to sneak into our camp and take whatever they could. And in the middle of the night, you'd hear screaming, and you have to run out there, and there'd be some 12-year-old boy stuck in our razor wire that we'd have to, pull them out. And I don't know what intelligence did with them. We would just patch him up. But it was a crazy experience. Stayed there for a year, went back stateside. You're not supposed to go from one hot zone to another, and the DMZ is considered a hot zone. But no, they were going to send us immediately to Iraq. Now, on our trucks, I don't know if you know what a split ring is. On the outer of these huge tractor tires, on the outside, they have what looks like a giant steel washer. It's huge. It's made out of steel. It's about, it's really thick. People are killed by them all the time, so you air them up in a cage. My sergeant wasn't having it. We had to do it on the truck. The first one I did, I stood right in front of, but I got nervous. So the second one I did, and I did like that. The last thing I remember is a sound going ding, and that was it. I was on the ground when I came to. I had no idea what happened. They're like, whatever you do, don't look at your arm. So immediately I look at my arm, and all I see is bone. I see my muscles contracting. I see blood, and my arm is shaped, it's bent backwards. And it was an illegal order. That was against, it was against the Code of Military Justice. It was against the law to do, but nothing happened. He says apologies while I'm in the hospital. And after only a week and a half, the doctor takes me off pain pills. And it is ungodly painful. And not only that, I'm not supposed to do any work. My arm's been broken and they're not even fixing it. But no, my company wasn't having it. They were going to make me work no matter what. So I was like, I just want to go back into the hospital. I put in a request to go to an outside doctor, and the head of orthopedics was like, well, what's going on? I'll send you, but why? And I told him, I was like, I just had my arm broke, my humerus, and they took me off the pain pills. He's like, I don't know why. I don't know who told him to do that, but he took care of me. But then the monster reawoke after some time. It was painful, but there was also the added addiction and withdrawal. But they sent him to Iraq. So then I was screwed. The last year I was in the Army was them hunting me. They knew I was a drug addict. I didn't even have a TV in my room. So you're dealing with the very organized and very much physical life being in the military, being combat arms, with because they still didn't fix it. Broken arm and this screaming opiate addiction. And I almost killed myself twice. I tried to. I really did not want to go through this anymore. They ended up finally giving me a medical out. They gave me an honorable discharge because they knew what they had done. And they sent me home with my arm still broke. 2 years, my humerus was not attached. It was just my arm swinging around. I finally get it fixed at the VA in Birmingham. And 5 months later, I'm getting ready to go pawn some stuff, and my parents call. They're screaming, crying, and I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to know what's going on. So I hang up, and then one of my other friends calls. And I'm really sick, and I'm just like, who died, And I start naming people, and they're like, and then it finally clicks. I drive to my friend Paul's. I hadn't spoken to in about a year. And I was like, Sierra's dead, my daughter's dead. I don't know what happened. And Paul's like, no. It's got to be some mistake. So I go and sit down, and he calls my parents, and he turns to me and goes, Sierra did die. And I was thinking, how am I going to see her mother? How am I going to talk to Nicole about this? Because we weren't on horrible terms. We'd always just, thought we would end up marrying each other after we both got our shit together. But he said Nicole died too. They had got into a 6-car pileup on the way to school in the morning in the rain. They weren't the only ones that died. I buried them both the same day. My daughter in her little casket. Nicole looking like she was that day when I came and picked her up. And I turned in on myself. There was no one I could talk to understand this kind of trauma. I hated. I told God if he was real, as soon as I had a chance, I would kill him and everything he'd ever made. And I said the same thing to the devil too. I just wanted to destroy everything that was ever made, and I was very lonely. I didn't understand what was going on, and that huge trauma. Years later, that's why I started the Nashville Masterclass. It was going to be a thing about music and music theory, and one of my therapists goes, why don't you talk about trauma and drug addiction and homelessness and hopelessness? Help those people that are in this situation you're in that don't know, and also to help me, know there's other people. But during this time, I was in and out of jail. I did not care. Homelessness, constantly going to jail, being locked up in the little cell, withdrawing, only the Bible to read, and I was full of hate. I didn't want to hear it. I just wanted to turn my mind off. I had decided the world was a horrible place, that I'd been tricked, and this was just my living hell forever. I found out that here in Los Angeles, for veterans, they give free methadone at the VA. In Birmingham and anywhere in the South, you don't get that. You got to pay. So I came out here. They said they would give me a place to stay, but it turned out to be a place to stay for a month and a half. So I'm on the streets going to the clinic. I meet this girl, Jamie, and she was kind of cute. She was insane, but I didn't know how schizophrenic she was. And at the time, I didn't think I could do any better. I'm a homeless drug addict. I call home one day and find out that Nicole's mother had sued the people who had just made the highway that Nicole and Sierra died on. They didn't put a median, no yellow lines, and they sued them, and I got $1.5 million. It didn't really register at first. Nothing like this happens to me. It took about 3 months, and the money finally came. I had to go to Alabama to pick it up. My insane girlfriend didn't want me to go because that's how crazy she was, and it took a week or two to get out of her claws. I went home, got this check, took it to the bank that it was written on so they couldn't make me wait. They tried to. I was like, no, it's your bank. You have to honor it immediately. And I lived like people can only dream. I went from homeless to being a millionaire here in California. I got a place on Martell in West Hollywood, right off Sunset. And I had a Rolls Royce. I bought all this vintage furniture, Victorian love seats, and just buying drugs, whatever I want. People knew I had, but that's the thing, people knew I had money. And being homeless, I wanted to help my friends, of course, my good old buddies. So they would come by all the time needing help, giving money left and right. I decided I wanted to buy a house, bought one in Mexico. Those people weren't the rightful owners, and they ran off my money. I was surprised that the Mexican government got about $80,000 back and sent it to me. But money was going down, and you got to realize I didn't know how to handle money of this caliber. I didn't have anything. When I had everything, it was my parents. I didn't know how to handle this money. So I meet this guy that had a shop right down the street. It was a pet grooming place. He's like, we can build this huge place over the mountain over there in North Hollywood, and we'll make a bunch of money. We'll make it huge. And he knew good and well I was a junkie. He knew good and well I didn't know what I was doing. But I'm thinking, yeah, this is a good investment. I'll get money back. So I give him $250,000. And surprise, even when it's being built, you're not getting, who knows how long it's going to be to turn a profit. I know that now. He knew that then, but I didn't. So we have nothing, and I have to sell off the rolls. I sell out the furniture. I sell all the jewelry, the guitars, and little by little, we're becoming more and more poor until finally we're out. We end up here in the art district at the American Hotel, living in somebody else's nasty, squalid apartment filled with bed bugs. And when my girlfriend's pregnant, oh my God. So when her water breaks, I call an ambulance. She goes to the communal bathroom. It's for everybody. And is sitting on this toilet, going into labor, trying to shoot dope. I was on the methadone clinic at this time. I knew what was coming. But she's telling me, hold the paramedics off. I'm trying to I ripped it out of her hand, picked her up, pants down around her ankles, her screaming, hitting me, carried her downstairs to the ambulance. Even in the hospital after birth, she's telling me to go. You got to understand the level of insanity with this woman. I don't mind saying that because it is. It just is what it is. She wanted me to bring her cigarettes. She wanted me to bring her dope. And I wouldn't, because this was all, I stayed with the child the whole time. He was born addicted. Now, I had people around here getting mad at me when she was pregnant. You better stop her from doing this dope and stop her from smoking. I'm like, I've been begging her. What do you want me to do? Tie her to a chair? But the courts, when we went to court, the courts gave me full custody and said she had no right to see the child, because this was not the first time something like this happened. Lo and behold, she had another child by her father, this weird, hard guy that had been around all the time. He takes my money. I sent him money. And this guy is insane. They're religious sane. He holds his family by manipulation and sexual abuse. Right? So they're huge Christians. They're going to marry Jesus. God's coming for them. He manipulates his daughter by writing her letters saying he's Nicolas Cage. And this poor schizophrenic girl believes it to this day. that Nicolas Cage is writing her those letters, and he would get her to send him watches and money. I knew it was him. And when I found out about the child that was more than likely by him, that was finally when I was like, don't come near me again. But this child was adopted by a family, and they would let Jamie come. Her name was Jamie too. They would let her come and see the child. So I was like, she wanted me to keep our child so she could come see whenever she wanted. I was like, absolutely not. You're not a good person. And second of all, I'm on the methadone clinic and I'm homeless. We are in no position. Why would you want to do that to this child? So I made the decision to give him up for adoption to this family. It was one of the best sound decisions I've ever made, and it was in the midst of the worst decisions. So here I am in the Arts District. Move out to Skid Row once that guy comes from his apartment back. Now we're talking fighting for my life, because Jamie, still being a heroin addict, is scamming these guys. I go to the VA, they be selling dope out of there. I'll give you my food stamp card for this amount. There wouldn't be anything on the food stamp card. She'd get fronts. She would never pay them back. But would they go after her? They would go after me. So I'm homeless, had to figure out how to eat, walking everywhere, nasty clothes. I'm only weighing 100 pounds. And to get my methadone, I've got to go through a gauntlet of guys that are looking to kill me. And they caught me a few times. I was stabbed in front of the VA. I had my head smashed into a pylon out there over this. And they would find me out here in Skid Row. I was waiting on a bus, and one of them jumped out of their car and just beat me viciously in front of God and everybody. The bus driver didn't do anything. He just took off. Everybody just watched, and then he took off. It was insane. We went back to Birmingham. I talked her into doing that, and I thought, finally, we're safe. Until one day she gets on a bus and comes back out here. So back out I come because I'm a fool. I'm on drugs. I really don't understand what it's like to be separated. I'm in that mindset. Now we're living in South Central. She has this little place. I would walk to the Green Line every day to come downtown to get my methadone. I was able to get enough money in Birmingham to pay those guys off. So it's a little safer now. But in South Central, me being a 100-pound white guy, every time I go home, I would get stopped because they thought I was a crystal meth addict. And around that time, the Occupy Wall Street stuff started happening. And then I started seeing it right down there at City Hall, the Dragnet building. I would walk past it on Temple every day, walk past the Michael Jackson, Conrad Murray trial. That was the first one. And then I walked past the Occupy LA. And so it was something different, so I wanted to be a part of that. This does have something important to my story, I promise. I had met a croaker, a doctor that will prescribe anything if you pay him. And I was getting extra methadone, Xanax tablets, and Adderall. I've been taking Adderall for days. I've been up for days. Now, at night, during these rallies, helicopters would start flying overhead the LAPD. And one night, I lost it. I ran away from the helicopters, tripped over this one poor guy. He's like, hey, man, what? And I just ran off. But in my mind, in my hallucination, this guy was part of the cartel, and now he was chasing me. I was hiding everywhere, running. I made it somehow to West Hollywood, was hiding in buildings, like running into CVS. These people are trying to kill me. It wasn't just the regular psychosis shadow people. I was seeing full 3D figures, hearing audible hallucinations. They were going to kill me, and they were just following me everywhere I go. For 3 days, from downtown West Hollywood to East LA and back, 3 days I ran. 3 days without food, 3 days without my methadone, and 3 days without water. I went to 3 different police stations and begged them for help, begged them for water, begged them for food. Not one of them, not one time did any of them do anything. They didn't arrest me even though I was begging them to, because I thought I'd be safer in jail. They just laughed. Finally, on the third night, this poor girl saw what was going on and realized I was in amphetamine psychosis. She calls an ambulance. They take me to LA County Hospital, and of all the hallucinations, one of the nurses was my roommate in the Army. But it wasn't. It was really him, of all things, to run into this guy. It took me a couple of days to realize, even they gave me a shot of Valium and I finally slept. It still took me a few days to realize that none of that had ever really happened. I had just run around LA scaring the crap out of people, screaming about people following me that was never there. I go back to the Occupy LA thing, and that night they actually did raid. Fires were going, people were screaming, rubber bullets, batons. It was total anarchy. And the next day, the mayor, was it Villa, can't remember his name, Villa Rosa? He was like, and I like to say nobody got hurt, which was a total lie. But the story goes on. My mom, who I hadn't seen in years, my biological mother, wants me to come home. She misses me. I get on a bus, finally, to leave LA and go home. When I get to the bus station, there's nobody there to pick me up, so I call my aunt. And she said she'd been trying to get a hold of my mom all day, that she's probably out with my sister. But my sister didn't come to see my mom. For some reason, the sliding glass door to her apartment was open, so I go in and look around, call her name, don't hear it. I see her bottle of Klonopin, and as a junkie I am, I slip some into my hand. I keep calling her name, and I finally find her dead on the floor with all of my favorite foods that she used to make for me as a child, all across the counter, waiting for me in little presents. I remember bending down and just stroking her hair and saying, "Mom, I'm home." And then I went and told my aunt, and she made a huge mockery by shaking her. She was very obviously dead, but she just made it worse. They said I missed her by about 2 hours. It was an aneurysm. And then my dad and stepmom picked me up. I went to her funeral sick, and I was 100 pounds. I looked gross. I looked like I was in my 50s. It was really bad to see. And I remember asking them, "So when are you guys going to take me to the methadone clinic?" And they're like, "Oh, no, that's the end. This is the end of all this." And they lived out in the country, so they locked me in their house. And I came off methadone cold turkey. And it takes months, not like heroin. The methadone gets in your bones, and it takes months of just basketball diaries, train spotting-esque withdrawals. But I finally started to see that this terrible, horrible, evil world was the drugs interacting with my mind. I was finally able to see clear, and I was happy. I had to go to jail a couple of times to get my license back because I had warrants, but I did it. And I was doing good, but as soon as I left their house and got my own apartment, it started again. The VA finally gave me my disability. And let me tell you about how the VA, they hurt me. I'm scarred for the rest of my life, PTSD and physical ailments, nerve damage. They did not give me my disability when I left like they should have. I had to fight for 8 years, and you know what they gave me? 10%. $100 a month. I was like, no. Because my doctors all approved my 100. Well, eventually they approved my 60, and I got about $32,000 in back pay. Met another girl who was more than happy to, spend my money again, and then ended up screwing my roommate and leaving with my car. A couple months after that, my stepbrother, who was really close to me, we would do drugs together. He was an opiate addict just like I was. So he was the only one I could really, click with, communicate with. We had a rapport and we vibed with each other. And, drug addicts are ubiquitous all over, but it's hard to try to find one that really vibes with you. But he did. He went up to Nashville and got clean. We got a call. That summer he had died unexpectedly in his sleep as my parents were going to see him. It's been almost a decade and it just doesn't feel like he's ever left, but he's gone. So they asked me if I wanted to go to Nashville and do the same thing. I'm like, yeah, I'll try. And there, instead of being in a rehab where everybody wants to get high and get out of there, these people wanted to be clean. They were happy. They didn't look like death. They had money and new things, phones, technology, computer. They were in the world and they were doing it. And it's the first time that I was like, I could do this. There's another world. And I did. I got clean. I stayed clean for 2 years. But one thing I didn't realize is that just because you get off drugs does not solve your problems. I didn't know it then. I still had the trauma, the hate, the anger, the nasty idiosyncratic behavior that comes with having to adapt to the streets and drugs. And girl after girl would go out with me and they would, eventually get mad and push me out. And it was always, they're crazy. Why do I keep going out with the crazy ones? I relapsed, of course, and then started a journey of manipulating and womanizing, but I didn't realize it at the time. I was moving in with a girl, living at their house, eating their food, living with them, and I told myself in my mind, you're just dating them, you're just going out, what's wrong? But I go from one to the other. There was no time by myself to work on me, to work on my skills. It was always latch on to somebody else. There were some good adventures. I ended up with a girl who went to the Fare Thee Well last Grateful Dead show in Chicago. Everybody in the world wanted to go. These tickets were thousands and thousands of dollars. And she gave me a whole 3-day pass. Took me to Chicago, nice hotel. First day, first set, third song. I'm like, I need to go. I got a stomach ache. Proceeded to indulge in everything I could find. Cocaine, psilocybin, smoking, nitrous. I went into psychosis again, wandering around Chicago, wandering back and forth from the concert and all over the place. I literally forgot who I was. This is a lot of damage from the psychedelics, the psychedelic trauma. I don't know if you know much about psychedelics and ego loss, if you've ever heard of it. Your ego dissolves, you can't remember who you are. Being human, you're just a consciousness. Well, this will happen to me in my sleep. And when I take a lot of drugs, it happens again. I don't understand. I'm in a world. I was never me. I was never born. Humans don't exist. The universe doesn't exist. I'm just a consciousness seeing and experiencing these things. Very scary. But I came to the very last night to hear their last song, Touch of Grey. And on the ride back to Birmingham, she promptly broke up with me as she should. And this would continue to cycle. I got clean again, lived with this young 23-year-old girl, but still, I would get on every single dating site and new girl all the time, just so codependent, girl after girl. Now it became, I think it's also something to do with being picked on so much and made fun of. Well, look how many girls I can get. Ended up back homeless. Was on the methadone clinic, couldn't pay for it. Back to heroin, back to crystal meth. And then one day, in a state of psychosis, this guy beats me hard. Now I'm walking around Nashville, bloody, blood dripping off of me. I go buy some dope. It wasn't real, but I don't notice because I'm so tweaked, been up for days. And I'm laying on this hill behind the store I've never been to all night, just holding on, thinking I'm going to die any minute, vomiting everywhere. I start walking. I see some guy cutting the grass with scissors at 3 a.m. at a Waffle House. This was real. This guy was on crystal meth too. Walked past this store and walked up a hill to a hospital, the whole time yelling, "Please help me. Please help me." And I was just at one of my worst points. The pain was unbearable. I got to the hospital, and of all things, they thought I was psychotic. They thought I had schizophrenia, and they gave me Haldol, which is like Thorazine, which can also cause your muscles to stiffen and make your neck turn or your muscles pull in. To me, it pulls my ankles in, where I'm walking on my ankles for 3 days and makes all my muscles contract. So I'm dope sick. I've been up for 3 days. I'm tweaking. And now I've got this to contend with. I'm screaming for the doctors. This all leads to something. I finally leave there, walking on my ankles, get a bus downtown to downtown Nashville. My buddy Eddie was down there. I'd known Eddie forever. He knew my mom. He would stay with us. And he used to be a junkie, but now he's an alcoholic. Very bad, killing himself. His face was bloated, but he was my friend. The first night, again, I stayed up hallucinating. The next day, I stopped hallucinating and hobbled my way closer downtown. And there's this guy in a car, this Russian. He says, "Hey, come here. Do you know where to find any dope?" Aha, a way out of this mess, out of this misery. So I get in the car with him, go to the same guy that screwed me over the night before, bought more fake stuff. So now this Russian guy thinks I did it, that I've got the real dope and I screwed him over. So he's holding me hostage in his car. He's delivering race car. He has this huge trailer behind his car and he's driving around Nashville screaming at me, hitting me. I'm like, I don't have it. That guy screwed us over. We end up in the worst part of Nashville. And that's very hard to find because Nashville is really nice all over. But we're in a horrible place. He picks up these guys, buys crack. So now everybody's in the car. People I don't know, guy holding me hostage. Everybody's smoking crack. One of the guys back there gives me a hit. I don't really want it, but I'm so sick. I'm down for anything.
Yeah.
So
How much longer is the story?
about 5 minutes or less. Oh, it's not going to go crazy. This is where I'm winding down. So he finally lets me out. And I'm walking away, and everything in my life has culminated to this point. This is what I mean. I was winding down to this. I am sick. I've been up for days. And I go to the walking bridge in Nashville over the Cumberland River. And I'm looking over, and I'm like, why do I keep becoming homeless? There's so many people that never have to do. Why do I keep going back to drugs? Why does everybody I try to have a relationship with push me away? Why are you so... And I was like, why don't you just jump? Just do it. Just why do you want to keep living like this? It's always going to happen. It keeps happening. And I had an epiphany. It's because you're a manipulative, selfish jerk that never learned to live on his own. You live on hatred from the trauma that's happened to you, and you're trying to pass that hatred and negativity onto everybody else because you feel you deserve it. And you're always waiting for external forces to bring you happiness. But why don't you just try being happy inside? I think people like that feel that that's their role in life and in the universe, is to be mad, to have this negativity. But I realized you didn't have to be like that. And then I realized all those girls that pushed me away, all my friends, they weren't crazy. It was me. It was always me. And I walked off that bridge, and I never went back to methadone. I got on Suboxone for a while. It didn't cause me to get high like methadone. And I started volunteering, working with animals, talking to vets, and just learning to care about others. Empathy, that was what's going to save me from this trauma, from these nightmares, from this constant hatred of things that have happened. The only way to deal with it is to negate that, to be positive, to show love. That's the only thing that could save me. So that day on that bridge, when all that happened, it caused a spark in me to change and to learn that I'm never there. I've never got to a point where now I know I'm good. Every day I grow. Every day I'm going to do something to make my life tomorrow better and to make life for others. I love to donate to the Beagle Freedom Project, the ASPCA, the Humane Society, St. Jude, Wounded Warrior, to give to others and not do it so you can say, hey, look what I did. Do it because these people need it. Don't you know how it felt to be like that? And that is what's let me survive. That's why I'm still alive. Now I teach music theory and guitar online. Taught myself, I spent years learning music theory. I learned how to weld, how to work with metal production. There's so many things I've learned and excelled at. And now this crappy, tiny little channel that I could care less about fame or monetizing it. I just want to help those people that felt that way. And so they know that there's other people like that. And I like to know other people like that. It's good. I need to have that kind of communion with other people that have gone through that trauma. And that's what saves me. That's what makes me wake up every morning. And yeah, there's so much more. I could tell stories like that all day and never end. But this is a good place to end for today, I think.
All right.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Jamie. That's a hell of a story.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
It's just such a soothing experience when you have that. I'm very grateful for my partner because it's just very just nice. And it's like, it doesn't make being nice feel like a chore.
We should be nice to each other.
Yeah, it's so simple. But yeah, so we'll talk about that.
It's so difficult too. Welcome to LA.
Thank you for having me. We did it in London last time, right?
We did it in London last time.
London last time.
But you live in Dubai.
I live in Dubai, but London was our middle ground.
Yeah. We
did
negotiated
London,
for London.
And then now we're in LA.
How do you like LA?
I like LA. I really, really like LA. The only problem is I'm always working when I'm here, so I don't get to experience LA the way the average person would. But it's a really cool city. My only problem is once you move to Dubai, you get so used to safety and you get so used to convenience that everywhere else feels a little bit difficult. But it's a great city.
Now, I get the impression that you're a therapist. You help people with their relationships and things like that.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like you cater more to the top 1% of people in the, I guess you would call it the sexual marketplace.
Yes. The top earners, the most beautiful women. Absolutely. And
okay.
I make no qualms about it. When people try and come for me in comments and saying, oh, you're always talking about the top 1%, somebody has to talk about them. If it doesn't apply to you, you can easily find a therapist or you can find content creators that do talk about the average person. Unfortunately, because of my environment, I live in Dubai, and because of the thing is, being a therapist, you only access people with disposable income. I'm not on the NHS, I'm not on government funding. I'm private, so therefore I'll only access people who have the luxury of talking to someone and paying for that service.
And another criticism that I see in your videos is you're not a professional.
Yeah, and
not
the
an
thing
actual
is,
therapist.
I've tried so hard. Like, no other therapist online will have to release their data to everybody. I've even put my qualifications online. I've even, luckily, because Dubai, in order to work in Dubai, they have to police check your qualifications. I've even put the police check on there to show that it's actually legit. But the problem is when women particularly, and it's some very sensitive men, when they're triggered by your information, because they don't have the intelligence to argue and they don't have the experience to have a counter argument, the only thing they can resort to is suggesting that you're not qualified. But it's their go-to argument. But the evidence is all on my website. And what I would say, even if I wasn't,
I see that with Orion as well. On my channel.
But here's what I would say: even if somebody's not qualified, the internet is a place for opinions. You don't have to take it on board. It's not like no one's prescribing you a drug. So if you don't believe it, you don't have to believe it. But if you don't believe it, you can scroll on. But it's their way of trying to diminish the truth that you're holding up against them. So whenever I'm saying something that triggers them, they feel like the way to diminish the pain of that trigger is to suggest that it's not coming from a qualified place.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school in London, and I went to UCL, which is in London, University of College of London, and I went to Royal Holloway, and then I also did my master's, and then I went to, I did my teacher training, which is a QTS, we call it in London. After that, I became into psychotherapy. I started focusing on psychotherapy, and then that's where I am today.
And then we can put that to sleep, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But the master's, the degree, the master's, diplomas, the QTS is all on there, but they still...
Well, haters love to hate.
They do.
I mean, I think I've come to the conclusion now that some people are just, they're happier being unhappy.
Yeah, they enjoy it. And they look for people that trigger them. If somebody triggers me, I try not to avoid their content, but I will find the same trolls on all of my videos. And they will comment on something I said in 47 minutes in. So I'm like, you spent 47 minutes watching somebody that you genuinely hate. And so they like it or love it. I can't spend time watching somebody I hate. So they're so fascinated by the information, but at the same time, they go in with a negative mindset. So you've got to feel sorry for them in some way. Can you imagine trying to torture yourself watching somebody you hate?
A friend of mine told me this yesterday. He said that you realize the people that hate you the most love you the most. They are actually your biggest fans.
Absolutely.
And if you actually interacted with them, they would flip in a...
Yeah, and they know your content more than anybody else. It's like they can tell you everything about you because they spend so much time studying you. They literally know your friends, they know how old you are, they know where you went to school, they'll know who you've worked with. They are dedicated to being obsessed with you. So you've got to worry about their own mental health. I can't imagine.
It's interesting that they continue to watch if they hate it so much. I remember when I was a kid, there was a television show called The Love Boat. Terrible TV show, just absolutely terrible. I didn't write a letter to the network. I didn't complain to whoever I could complain. I just made sure I never watched it again.
It's that simple. And especially with podcasts, it's such a long process and it's not entertaining enough to sit there and just have it in the background. So the fact that you go out of your way to watch a particular person continuously to do that is, I don't know if it's a slight pseudo obsession or what it is, but it comes with the territory. But what I would say, what I found with myself, which I find so fascinating, I sometimes see people literally verbatim copy my content, and people will respond quite positively to the other person saying the exact same thing. It's when I say, I think I've become associated with kind of controversy. So the moment I say it, it just ignites a lot of anger in the people that have a pre-existing.
I'd like to thank BetterHelp for being a sponsor of today's video. I think a lot of my viewers are going through things, just like we all are, whether you're a viewer or not of this channel. I think everybody goes through something. And whether it's depression or anxiety or you're just going through a tough period of your life, talking with a professional can be really helpful. You know, personally, I go through just the stress of talking to so many people that are going through tough times, tough stories, is hard on me. And talking with a therapist is really helpful. So I just started doing that recently. It's been really great for me. I'm a huge fan of therapy. And with BetterHelp, you can have your therapy session as a phone call or a video session, or even messaging if you prefer. Whatever's most comfortable for you. I did mine as video, which is great. It's just like being in their office, but you're doing it from the comfort of your own home. And my BetterHelp therapist has been wonderful. Right from the get-go, he kind of figured out what my deal is and was really helpful. And what's great about BetterHelp is you get paired with a therapist, You're matched within 48 hours in most cases. If you're just not feeling it with your therapist, you can try another one. Or you can try as many times as you like until you find someone that you're comfortable with. And you can do that at no additional charge, which is really nice. So if you'd like to join the over 4 million people that have taken charge of their mental health by talking with an experienced BetterHelp therapist, you can actually get 10% off by going to betterhelp.com/soft white underbelly or click on the link in the video description box below. Thank you for watching, and now back to the video. A lot of what you say, and Orion Taraban, who I've also interviewed, a lot of what you guys say is triggering.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's almost as if you're a very attractive female and you're giving almost a red pill-ish perspective on relationships.
Well, I feel like I'm relatively neutral. It comes across a bit red pill, but then there's other times where I'll say something and the red pill community be like, oh, she's not one of us and she's a feminist. So it's all it basically is when you look at human behavior all day, every day, you can explain it without emotion. It's a bit like a doctor will tell you, you've been eating too much sugar and this is what it is. They're not saying it as an insult. They're saying it as an observation. So the reason why myself and Orion probably come across very triggering is we are only relaying what we see. We're not making this up. We're not trying to hurt anybody. This is a continuous pattern we've observed in our real experience working with real clients.
I would say both you and Orion are highly intelligent.
Yeah.
But he has insights into things, and he just tells it how it is. And
I would
it's so
honestly
hard for
say
people to
it's
swallow.
probably because, and I really respect Orion, and I respect James's opinion, because
Sexton.
what they do in their spare time is they're on the ground. Like myself, we're working with clients all day, every day. If you're watching a content creator and in their spare time they're just selling a course online, or in their spare time they're a reality TV star, or in their spare time they've just got a bunch of businesses, their advice can be, with a pinch of salt. But when you know that person is all day, every day working with people, and as a result has this insight, it might sound extreme, but they're on the ground, and that's why it's triggering you. But they're not trying to trigger you. This is what they observe. So
But you spend most of your time with clients?
All day, every day. Yeah, that's primarily all I do. A couple of hours a day, every single day I'll be doing that. Podcast is a very tiny proportion of my work. My work is literally on the ground, speaking to men and women every single day.
What would you say is your core philosophy of maintaining and finding healthy relationships?
What I would say is figuring out your partner's true needs and making sure that can you actually abide by those needs. And if you can't, it's better not to go ahead. And what I mean by that is I've become a bit jaded. I'll be honest, I've become a little bit jaded. But what I realized is how many people just don't communicate their true needs, have a relationship, and then just live a double life on the side or get their needs met somewhere else. Understanding your partner's actual needs and signing up to their true needs, not what you want them to be. And what I mean by that is if you have a wife who's very clingy and she wants a lot of emotional reassurance and you refuse to give her that and you just don't want to give her that, staying in a relationship like that is like a slow suicide. You're just not meeting her needs, she's not meeting it, and you're just staying together until you both move on. Similarly, if you have a partner, and a male partner, and I notice this a lot, they have a need for physical touch far more than they say. And if you're not willing to meet that, I know a lot of women who will go months and years without touching their husband. If you're not willing to meet that core need, don't be shocked if your partner starts meeting it elsewhere. And I know that sounds terrible, but if you're not going to meet your partner's needs, unfortunately, they will get them met from somebody. So it's better to just be real with each other what these needs are, have that communication, and be sure that you're signing the same contract when you enter the marriage.
Do you ever see people, your clients, who actually make a change and improve the situation in their lives?
If I'm being honest, it's rare. The better thing that they can do is be honest with themselves about what their true needs are and find a compatible partner. Changing can happen, but it usually takes a crisis. And by the time they've had that external crisis, let's say, for example, somebody has a sex addiction and they only change when their wife's discovered all the pornography or the escorts and everything, it's almost like the damage is so severe that it's quite hard. Even if the person is changing, their partner's still punishing them for the old person they were. So I would say that the better thing to do is, instead of expecting a complete 180 change, pick people compatible in the beginning stages, and you'll save yourself a lot of trauma. And then you're just figuring out little tweaks like how to communicate correctly or how to resolve a few arguments. But if your relationship requires this person to become a different human being in order for it to survive, it's not going to survive.
Is love something that we can analyze and figure out so that we can make it work in our lives, or is it just something mysterious and magical that we either get lucky with or we don't?
I think
Because sometimes it seems like it's just like
I think
in
we
the cards.
confuse love and attraction. I think attraction is a bit more mystical, and you can't always pinpoint what a person can do. Sometimes I'll have clients and they just say, I'm not attracted to him or I'm not attracted to her. And they can't tell you why. They know aesthetically they're tall, dark, handsome, or they're a curvy young girl or whatever it is, and they just can't tell you why the attraction's not there. I think attraction is a bit more mystical and you can't quite define and work on that. But love is definitely a skill that you can work on. And the main thing to do when you're working on love is remove all ego. If you really want to create love, you have to make sure you remove your ego is not making your decisions for you. So if you're a man choosing a woman purely because she provides you an ego boost, or if you're being mean to your partner simply because it gives you an ego boost knowing that your partner's still going to chase after you, if you have that as a form of love, it's not really love. It's you are using somebody to boost your low self-esteem. But if you really want to make love work, you remove the ego, you figure out what the person's needs are, and you ask yourself the honest question, am I willing to meet this person's needs? Does it make me happy meeting their needs? If it feels so tough and so difficult, you're better off not trying, because you're just going to make that person feel like a burden in your life. But if it makes you feel good meeting your partner's needs, you actually feel great when your partner says, oh, I love that, you give me a massage, it makes me feel so good. And you're like, oh my God, I love doing things that make you happy. Then you can create love and you can build love on that. It's just taking happiness from making each other happy.
How do you advise couples who, like, if they want to improve communication in their relationship, especially when they're going through like a difficult time?
Yeah. The main thing is people who have trouble with communicating, what it really is they have trouble being honest with themselves. They don't know what they're trying to say, and they're just usually either trying to attack or avoid conflict. So they go into extremes. They're either somebody who just avoids complete conflict and will suppress what they're thinking and feeling just to keep the peace. So they might be a man that hasn't had sex with his wife in years and hasn't even said anything about it because he doesn't want to come across as a predator, but then will do something very extreme behind her back. Or it might be a woman who just doesn't want to rock the boat, doesn't want to tell him too much because she knows that he's going to fly off the handle. So they suppress what they want just to keep the peace, and as a result there's no communication. The relationship might last a really long time, but it will lack intimacy. Or they're the other type where they take any opportunity to go for a high level attack to their partner. Every time there's a fight or disagreement, they can never stay on the topic. Instead, they use those as opportunities to abuse their partner about all of the criticisms they've been holding on to for a really long time. So the balance is, when you're getting into a relationship, start with what when you're getting into conflict, start with what you're feeling, like, well, I'm feeling unloved, or I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling upset. Explain exactly what you're upset about, but then give your partner the solution. I would really appreciate it if you did X, Y, Z, or it would mean a lot to me if you would stop doing X, Y, and Z, rather than you're this, you're that, and they're just screaming and shouting. So giving your partner the solutions. A lot of people feel like if they have to explain to their partner how to love them, then they're not the compatible partner. But with everybody in life, you have to communicate how you like to be loved. They need to learn it from you.
You almost need like an hourly session a week, every week or so, every month at least, to explain what you're honestly feeling, or what you're not getting, or what you're, whether it's maintaining your own identity in the relationship, or talking about the things you want and you're not getting, or what you're worried about. It's like, if you don't communicate these things, if you can't communicate these things, they'll never get addressed.
And also, how do you view giving the instructions? Some people think if I have to communicate it, they're not the right person. But sometimes you might need to tell your wife, like, I really appreciate it if you wear lingerie once in a while, it makes it different. Or telling your husband that, you can be a little bit more assertive, you can make the decisions, don't rely on me. It's the inability to express yourself, but then expecting the person to know how to mold to your needs is what's going to cause a breakdown in communication.
I can't speak for women, but I can speak for men. I think what men really appreciate is feeling appreciated.
Yeah.
And so many people think men just want sex, but I think feeling appreciated, that'll lead to sex. It'll lead to all kinds of wonderful things.
Which way round do you think it is? Because as I was saying, I've become a bit jaded, and I'm a big advocate of like showing men appreciation, like, even if it's acts of service, cooking, cleaning. I have no objections with that, and I really encourage women to lean into their femininity. But having worked with so many men over the years, I feel like until they get the sex, they can't appreciate the other acts of service. And so it's almost like the baseline. So what I mean by this
No,
is...
no, you can.
You can?
With the right woman, you totally would appreciate her responding to your act of kindness or your help or your whatever you're doing for her.
So say if she cooks and cleans but she doesn't sleep with you, would you still feel appreciated?
What time period are we talking about?
Let's say every 3 months.
Yeah,
Every month, and I don't know what's a lot for men. For men,
that would get frustrating.
What about if she sleeps with you every night but doesn't cook?
See,
If you had to pick a door,
everything in life is a balance.
You know what I realized, and this is where I become jaded. Where I become jaded.
Some guys don't need their woman to cook.
Yeah, because again, like I said, I work with the 1%. As a man becomes more and more successful, he can outsource acts of service. So he can order food, he can have a cleaner, he can have somebody dry clean all his clothes. So the normal acts of service and signs of appreciation a woman can provide, he doesn't require. And even that emotional intimacy, when he's so busy all day, every day, does he really have time to talk about her day or what's been going on? So when they get to the 1% and they start becoming 1% earners, all the other acts of service that are really feminine and beautiful, they become less valuable, and the primary focus is her sexual capabilities.
Are the relationships amongst the you calling it 1%?
Yeah, the 1%.
Wow. Are the relationships amongst that 1% any happier and more fulfilling than the rest of us?
It is far worse. far worse, and I would say that on both ends it's far worse, particularly for men, particularly for the male end of things, because they're bringing a lot to the to get the lifestyle the 1% create. It's traveling, it's jet lag, it's years of college, it's lots of bills, it's lots of stress, it's lots of negotiation. For a woman to then access that, all it is she has to know what he likes sexually, and she will access that life. It's that simple for her. And she doesn't have to be somebody who is traditional. She doesn't have to be somebody who is respectful. She doesn't have to be somebody who knows how to cook or is a good mother. When the men become the 1%, they get less critical and less focused on all the other traits, and they just focus on their stress relief. And women and sex becomes their stress relief. So that's what they go for. And as a man becomes more successful, in my personal experience, they are far more likely to marry and invest in gold diggers and escorts. They are not looking for wives as they get to the top. They are actually looking for women, human kind of stress relief in the form of just whoever pleases them sexually. Is that really jaded?
Yeah, well,
you look confused.
I think because you're working with that 1%, and it's a very distorted.
It's very distorted
segment of society.
It's very distorted, and the other thing is, it's a real because it's the opposite of what you get told men want online, and it's the opposite of what I used to teach. I used to be very much like being reserved, being loyal, being sexually loyal to your man, cooking and cleaning. This all matters. I realized that it doesn't matter as they get more successful. You'll see Drake having a baby with a porn star. You'll see Chris Brown, the rappers, they all have get like dancers and strippers pregnant, because as they become busier, their social battery decreases so much that the ability to maintain a normal, healthy connection, which involves vetting her, getting to know her, communicating with her, that all goes down. So all they need is somebody who is quite empty and a bit of a bimbo, but as long as she looks great and performs great, they're relatively happy with that.
Yeah, you're living in a stratosphere.
It really is. Have you not noticed that as men get more successful, their taste of women gets less and less meaningful?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
No.
I've always been really lucky, so I don't know.
Yeah, but also, I would imagine it also depends on the flashiness of the man. The more flashy he is with the lifestyle, the more he attracts that empty vessel.
You attract the wrong kind of people.
Yeah, it's how he makes his money also matters. How he makes his money and how he spends his money matters. But if he just happens to be a successful man, I think he'll still look for a deep and meaningful relationship. But if he's one of those men that is in a constant pursuit of money and flash, he is totally fine with a bimbo that he gets to sleep with. And I don't see anything wrong with it. It definitely works out in her favor because she gets a great life. But this is what I've noticed, which has been a real kind of humbling experience for me, which I didn't realize men were like this.
Yeah, see, for me, it's like when I find a female that I really can get serious about, I just make it clear that I am the best possible option in her life.
How do you do that?
Just by the way I treat her, by what I do to make her life easier, better.
Mm-hmm.
more pleasurable, whatever.
Yeah,
And that just paves the way for things to work out
and
nicely.
I think that's really important, but selection is everything. If you're choosing a woman who is looking for her best option and wants a loyal, loving relationship, that works perfectly. But if you're choosing a woman who's trying to extract resources,
Well,
you can be the best.
You can tell the difference, though.
You would think that. I don't think men can tell the difference, because there's so many times where I'll release a video and it's like a light bulb moment for so many men. And I'm like, you didn't think that this 23-year-old is using you for your 55-year-old money? Like, it's like they didn't think that. They genuinely believed this woman half their age, or this woman that, they've flown over from another country, they believe they're special in her eyes. They don't realize the game. And whereas women are so aware of the game, when you speak to a 25-year-old, like let's say sex worker, she will tell you she understands men like the back of her hand. So she knows how to give him some fake self-esteem. She'll know how
Women
to...
are much
smarter.
Much smarter about
They're
these
much
games,
smarter.
aren't they?
So smart. She will tell you how to work a man in 5 minutes. But these men who have gone from escort after stripper after stripper, they still believe the lies women tell them. Because those lies feed this low self-esteem that they're craving an inflation of. So they will still believe it. And no matter what the evidence shows them, they will still believe it. There's such a naivety towards women that men have that women just don't have, particularly as she becomes more beautiful. Or if she is beautiful, she loses all her naivety about men. Whereas men, no matter how rich they get, they don't lose their naivety about women. They want to believe every word she says.
Yeah, men are simple.
They're simple. Yeah, they'll believe what you tell them, not what you show them.
How has the field of relationship coaching changed since you began?
I would say, like, from my experience, as I've become more jaded, I have become a lot more jaded, because I used to be very much like, tell me about your communication style, tell me about your conflict style. Now sometimes I'll go into a couple and I've got a few skills that I think like is very rare. I can look at a couple within a minute. I can tell if a woman is having an affair. Within a minute, I can tell if somebody's having an affair. I think that's my superpower. The video will turn on, and they haven't said a word. And I remember having a couple not so long ago. The video turned on, and I looked at them, and I said, "She's having an affair." I just could within a second. And I asked a few questions, but I knew what was going on. I asked a few questions, and I allowed her to start. And I said, "Do you mind explaining?" And she's like, "Oh, he's a great husband. Just we're not in love." And I said, "You're having an affair. You can be honest. You're having an affair." And he went, "Actually, I've just caught her recently, and that's why we booked the call." And I said, "I could tell completely that she's having an affair. And I could tell by the fact that, A, she can't find real flaws in you. She's talking about something you did wrong 4 years ago." Or she'll mention that, "Oh, he, was emotionally abusive because he didn't remember an anniversary 5 years ago." They bring up things from the past and make the man feel guilty today, because they're trying to cover up with what's the real problem. And the other thing is they're totally disconnected. They're checked out of the relationship. When a woman's genuinely loyal in the relationship, I turn on the camera and she's like almost in tears, like, "My marriage is falling apart, help us." But this woman was so disinterested, so like just, like this, okay, looking around, and he's suited and booted and ready for this call. I said, within a second, I could tell she's having an affair. And I said, "You are going to waste your life trying to change and believe that it's something to do with today's problems." She's disconnected. And it's like that, I can tell. So I think my skill set, whereas before I would try and figure out if there's an emotional disconnect or if there's something to do with conflict, now I'm just like, "I'm so sorry, but I can spot it a mile away now." Yeah. And I can also tell on the other flip side of things, I can tell when a man is addicted to pornography. Those have become my skills. I'm like, okay, and I'm like, okay, this is what's really going on.